summer we met, I can tell by your smile you hadn't been with.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you don't know me by now, my name is Trini Lovely, and today we're going to have a very interesting topic. And today we're going to go in a little bit more spiritual. And you know, every week I give a spiritual video, every week I give a business video, and every week I give a trending topic. So today we're going to do the spiritual video. I was supposed to make it yesterday, but actually I was a little bit caught up actually working on the website, so I definitely wanted to deliver. So today we definitely going to jump into that spiritual video today. And today we're going to talk a little bit about your shadow self. So if you're not aware with that terminology, what is the shadow self? Well, the shadow self is like an archetype energy that is really developed through some kind of pain, trauma, hurt, as when you were pretty much a child, and it actually grows as you get older, and it really stores all these hidden secrets to yourself that you're not even aware with, that you suppressed it all the way through. Like, in order for you to move on, you suppress a lot of pain and a lot of hurt, and there's so much different emotions that if you actually sat down and really went through your life and thought back, you would develop a lot of different issues and pain and hurt. And the way how you actually got through life was actually doing a lot of suppressing. So, you know, unless you're on your higher self, you know, and you are, you know, highly on that spiritual consciousness, I would say you probably don't have this shadow self anymore. But a lot of us have this shadow self, and we're not aware of this shadow self. So I was watching this show recently, and it was called Love and Listing. Is it Love and Listing? I'm not even too sure. I gotta check that. It's actually on VH1, and in the show, it's basically about a few realtors, you know, working in the industry, selling houses, and it really is a reality show, and it goes into everyone's personality, their lives and experiences that they're having. So there was this one young lady on the show who was she's really confrontational. She's really caught up on other people's business, and she tends to lash out a lot. She has a lot of outbursts, a lot of, you know, experiences where she's always in some kind of drama from the first time the show appeared, and they brought the show back a second time. So it's the same dynamic with her personality. And as the show goes into more episodes, you know, the cast, they tend to, at this time, they actually are like over her personality, and they sick of her, and they're like, why did she even come to their dinner? And they were just disgusted by her behavior. Okay. The reason why I'm speaking about this is because, you know, when I was watching the review, I'm on YouTube. I'm watching the review, and I was checking out somebody's channel, and I was reading the comments. I don't know, I just love to read comments. And I was reading the comments, and somebody said, you know, she really got to, you know, go see a psychologist and kind of like work with her, you know, herself, and find out what's the rooted issues to why she's really lashing out. And instantly I said, it's the shadow self, right? So let me go into like a little bit steps and stages of how it's so easy for you not to be aware of your shadow self. So when you now come into this realm, and you're a baby, and you're young, and you're, you know, between the ages of maybe like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you know what I mean? You're basically are in that air element. You're in the element of creativity. This is why you like to play. This is why you have enormous, great, magical imagination where you're just air element. So you're just free. Now, a lot of times there's, you know, you're coming in on the realm of, you're in a set point of your parents or whoever raised you or your grandparents, right? And, you know, when you come in, you can't choose what family member you come in on, unless you're doing a magical ritual. I don't know, maybe, you know, but other than that, you can't choose it, right? You can't choose who parents you roll in on, right? So when you come in, you know, there's so many kids that suffer trauma in their past, from abuse to physical abuse, to sexual abuse. There's a lot of hurt, there's a lot of pain sometimes that goes on in someone's life very early on. And I know that my personal experience, when I was really, really young, about 5, I remember my dad took me to school. He registered me to go to elementary school, and my mother was not there, and my mother, she came to this country in the United States because she wanted a better living, she wanted a better life, and that was what most people come to migrate to other countries for, because they want a better life, they want more opportunities. And she was in America, and I was actually in the Caribbean with my siblings and my father. And during that time, it was really, really hard on me. Like, I didn't remember what my mother looked like. I didn't really have an image of her. I didn't remember experience anything with her. And I remember feeling very abandoned. I never really felt close to anyone. And my father, he was not that person where he pushes out this kind of love and that kind of connection. And I remember, my early stage of, feeling depressed and suicidal was at 11, so keep that in mind. And it was always because of what I've been through in the past, and the hurt, the pain, the trauma. And I had a lot of experience, and I remember feeling like I was trapped and I couldn't get out of my experience. And I was experiencing all kind of hurt from very young. And I always felt abandoned, I felt rejected, and there was so many things that I was going through on such a psychological level of dealing with my feelings and my emotions. And I didn't really understand because I was a really small child. Like, I'm 5, I'm 6, and not feeling loved, not feeling cared for, not feeling like, I had anybody there. So throughout life, I actually went through a lot of experiences, kind of like searching for that. So, about when I hit 11, I was just always, just hurt and just feeling down, feeling depressed. And then when I did meet my mother, I just felt like I wanted to follow her all around, all the time, but I just didn't feel that connection with her because of that trauma that I went through in my early part of my life. And I never understood why I couldn't feel that connection. So, with that being said, so as time went on, whatever pain I had, I basically started suppressing that pain and not being aware of that pain. So I'm still in the air element. So when you're in the air element, that's creativity, that's your imagination, that's how you like to play. This is why you can imagine like a Muppet baby. You can think about everything and anything, and it's just joyful times because you're still in that air element. So about adolescent, you actually adopt that fire element. And fire element, as we know, fire element is extremely a wild card. I mean, when we think about like fire burning in the forest, and you cannot tame fire. Fire is just all over the place. Fire do what a fire wants to do. And that is the same thing from that adolescent age, where most kids tend to actually act out from. And if you notice, around that age at 11 is where I started developing this depression state. So very early on, I didn't have that. But about when I hit that fire element, I was actually in this more of a depressive state and feeling hurt, feeling pain, and just always feeling disappointed, feeling rejected. And that was my, adolescence, going into teenage years, going to my early childhood. I had the air element, but when I got to the adulthood, I still was in that fire element. So, within fire, you tend to kind of suppress your memory so you can move forward. So you kind of get that, you kind of outgrow that personality trait of, wanting this acceptance because you're no longer in that air element. And that air element, you're kind of like still looking to that parent. And about fire element, you're actually looking to your peers. So you really want to be more accepted by the peers over the parent. You don't really have that connection with the parent as the same way as how you had it when you was much earlier on in that childhood. So now as you are in that fire element, you're now suppressing that hurt and dealing with the hurt a different way. And this is how you sometimes get to that archetype energy that already grew from the air element, and you have no awareness that you actually grew this archetype energy. You're now nurturing this archetype energy because the shadow self is basically every pain, trauma, hurt that you dealt with as a child, and you have no idea you actually even dealing with this because you're suppressing it. And it's basically taking all that pain, all that hurt, and you're actually holding on to this pain, and it's actually shaping your views as you go through life. You ever had like family member where you guys grew up together, but as you got older, you're like, I don't speak to her anymore, and you don't really care to have that person in your life? Or, you know, you had parents and you wanted that relationship, but now as you got older, you're just like, I don't care. Do whatever you want to do. Don't call me. So this is when it comes in. This is how it comes in, because you're now in that fire element. And it's already in the shadow. So the shadow already started collecting this hurt, collecting this pain. So as you get into that, I would say middle age, all right, you're basically an earth element. So you're kind of in that element where you're just kind of like, it is what it is. You're in that material element now where you're just like, whatever, I could live without you. And when you hit that elderly age, you're actually in that water element. Okay, so and that's the level and the steps of the elements. However, back to the shadow self. So the shadow self actually is going through all the stages of the elements with you, and it's actually holding on to all this pain as you go, and you're constantly keep suppressing this pain as you go. So what happens is, as when I was talking about the show, I think it's called Love and Listen, and I really hope this is the name to it. However, the girl tends to act out, scream, yell. She cannot deal with her emotions. She cannot deal with, you know, responding to things when it doesn't go her way. Even though she's super confrontational, she doesn't see herself as the issue. She sees herself as the victim. And that's how it is, right? So when you're in your shadow self is not allowing you to see yourself projecting hurt onto others, because this is the archetype energy that's actually literally taking all your pain. And as you get older, and if you don't work on that pain that you're actually dealing with, that archetype energy actually takes over and forms an ID, right? And it takes over, and it actually controls the situation, the narrative, right? Because if I'm a person who suffer from a lot of pain and a lot of hurt and a lot of disappointment, and I'm always angry, there's a reason why I'm angry. I'm angry for a reason. I'm not angry because I want to be angry. I didn't wake up, yesterday want to be angry. I'm angry because there's some trauma from my past that is triggered off from a hurt and a pain that I may have developed. And sometimes, just a perfect example, somebody in an abusive relationship. If you're in an abusive relationship, sometimes it can be, you're also connecting. You could also have experienced abuse very early on in childhood, and then as time go on, meet a guy who could trigger off certain emotions by him speaking to you, and he may not be physical, but he can be actually verbal abusing you, and he could trigger such emotion from your early childhood where you were getting physical abuse, and you could spend a lot of times being hurt in that relationship and not understanding why that he's yelling and screaming, but it's taking you back into this emotions and this hurt and pain as if you was a child, and he may not be putting his hands on you, but it allows you to act more aggressive, more expressive, and you're now standing up for yourself, and you're like, enough. And so there's this toxicity that goes on in a relationship, because a lot of people are not aware that they are verbally abusive. A lot of people think, every abuse means, I'm actually just beating up on you. No, you can be verbally abusive. You can be mean-spirited when you get upset. You can be a lovely person, but the minute you get the person upset, you're mean-spirited. You're yelling, screaming, you're going in, you're digging, you're hitting that person where it hurts. You're laying out that person cards. You're like, wait, hold up. You know what? Print out your diary. I'm about to let you have it. And they have a lot of people with that kind of attitude. So, you know, when you're going through something in life, sometimes a lot of the emotions is actually connected back to that early childhood. And so that is how the shadow self operates. So one of the things that you can do is try to deal with the pain that you are suppressing. You know, you shouldn't try to suppress any more pain. And I do recommend, you know, just really learning yourself, really understanding yourself, and really trying to figure out who are you. You know, if you're actually in a relationship, it doesn't mean that if you're in a relationship with a husband and wife, or a girlfriend and boyfriend, or, you know, just a relationship with friends, co-workers, sometimes we have to take a little time to ourselves and try to reflect back and think about what emotions is being triggered at this time, you know, and learning ourselves, because you can't go through life responding to everything very dramatic, right? Because you're going to see yourself losing relationships as you go. Like, a lot of people are going to be like, I don't want to deal with this person. I cut off, I'm telling you right now, like, I have met so many wonderful friends throughout my life, and I tell you, I have met them at the best, and within 2 minutes that person switch up, and that person is toxic, angry, hurtful, mean, nasty, and I'm like, I'm not doing that. What we not gonna do is, I'm not gonna take your abuse. And it's because very early of my personal experience that I felt that was being triggered off. And I wasn't aware of that, you know, like, so to be honest with you, I didn't learn all this until I started learning myself and learning who I was. And as you go on to your spiritual journey, because this is part of your spiritual journey, is to understand who you are. You have to understand who you are in order for you to get to that connection with the divine. We can't just read a book and say, okay, I'm spiritual, or, you know what, I'm gonna read a book and I'm on my consciousness. You're not on no consciousness. We all operate on our subconsciousness. And when you hit that enlightenment and you get to that higher self, now you're on that consciousness. You're not on a consciousness if you find yourself still acting out. If you don't know how to control your emotions, and you don't know how to control the dynamic and the elements around you and your atmosphere, you're still on that subconsciousness with me. You're sleeping with me. And a lot of people will say, you know, you're sleeping, but they don't understand. Sleeping does not mean that we're all sheeps and we're walking around blindfold. You're sleeping because you're on a subconsciousness. And when you get to that enlightenment, and you get to that enlightenment, and you get there at that point in your life, now you actually on your higher self, and now you're on that consciousness, because you see the world different. You're connected to the world different. You're handling everything different. So if, brothers and sisters, if you're actually still yelling, screaming, cursing, fighting, quarreling, you know, oh, I'm not going to take this, and you're actually indulging in toxicity and negativity, and you're not meditating, you know, and on your calm and knowing how to actually maneuver through this realm, then you're still on the subconscious with everybody else. So keep in mind that as well. So as you go through your spiritual journey, there's a lot of times through your spiritual journey, you will see other people's flaws. But keep in mind, this is your spiritual journey, right? This is about you. This is about your connection with the divine. Keep your eye on yourself. Keep your eye focused on you. And if you focus on you, you will really get to learn yourself. Like, I have met people, and I don't even want to say their names, but I have met people throughout my life and that person said, you know, I went to church today and you should have came. And I'm like, oh yeah, why? They were talking about you. No, they were talking about you. They wasn't talking about me. If they were talking about me, I would have been at the right place at the right time, and I would have heard what it was said. Because if it's for me, it's going to be for me. But if you was there and you heard it, they were talking about you. But you were in your in your subconsciousness, and you allowed your ego to block the message, and when you heard the message you automatically thought about me, but the message was for you. So when you're on that spiritual journey, keep in mind everything that happens to you, it's a reason, because it's on your path. And we're going to talk about that another time, about numerology, and we're going to talk about the path that you have in life. But if you're on your spiritual journey and you want to learn anything, you have to learn yourself first. Once you learn yourself first, and I would suggest learn your zodiac sign and watch your traits. Now, I'm a Taurus. Every Taurus don't act the same, but we do have similarities. Okay, so definitely start learning you and start really thinking about the pain and the trauma that you went through as you were younger. If you can't control your emotions, that was one of the things that I had to learn to control, is my temper. Like, I actually struggled with that. And when I learned my numerology and I seen that, I'm like, oh my God, like, they talk about that. They said that I was gonna lose control if things ain't work out the way I wanted it to work. So that was a real challenge for me, and it still is a challenge for me, of trying to look at myself. Because when you're on your spiritual journey, you gotta take up the mirror and you gotta point it at yourself. You gotta look into the mirror, because you're not gonna see you. I talked about that in one of the previous videos. You're not gonna see you. You're not gonna know anything about yourself, except for what people tell you and the perception you believe of yourself. And sometimes our perception could be off. We could look at ourselves and say, I'm a good person. I actually donate. I actually give everybody money. I pray for everyone. I go to church all the time. I go to the mosque all the time. I am holy. I'm righteous, and I could have a perception of myself. But this time, I'm the people around me don't see me as that. They're hurt by me. They're sad by me. They're disappointed by me. They're angry off of things that I say because I'm mean-spirited to them. And these are the things that we go through. So unless you actually are on that spiritual journey, really trying to find who you are, because that's the most important thing. You're looking for you. You got to find you. You got to love you. And if you do that, you're going to find the divine, because he's there. He's there. And you have to break down a lot of obstacles and move that mountain, and you will find him. You will see him. You will know who you want to connect to. You would be able to connect, and you're always willing to connect, and you're always ready to connect. So keep that in mind. You can always connect to the divine. All right, because we have the divine inside of us. We were created with the divine inside of us. We have the 5 elements within us. We have earth, fire, air, water, and ether, which is spirit. So keep that in mind. We have the elements sitting inside of us. So you can always find the divine. The most important thing is working on you. So this is a journey where you have to journey to who you are, because you have a polarity of negative and positivity inside of you. Like I said before, you could be super duper righteous and you could be super duper dark, in connecting to both polarities. But you have to find a way to balance. It's not about you being in a perfection. It's about you balancing in the middle, because you need to balance that energy. So, it's really, don't beat up on yourself if you haven't gotten to where you want to be on your spiritual journey, or if you were meditating and you haven't descent out and astral travel, astral project. It's not about that. It's not about you astral project and astral travel, and it's not about you getting visions. It's not about you prophesizing and deviations. You will get there. It will happen for you. All right, but it's really about you learning you and understanding you. And as you learn you can really control the elements around you. And when I say control the elements about you, we could go into that on another video. But you can actually take your free will, and you keep in mind, we're in this realm where it has a lot of restrictions. So it's not that easy to take your free will and control your life the way you want it to be controlled, because down to the numerology, down to the zodiac chart, down to all these things. It's really written in it's written how we act, how we take things. So if you want to take that steering wheel and control how you want to dictate your life, you're gonna have to get on that spiritual journey and understand who you are, and then you will be able to find out why you're here. I can tell you why you're here, but you have to believe why you're here. So it's your journey. It's your spiritual journey. You need to go find out why you're on this realm. What are you here for? And I can I could do another video like that and help you on your path of your spiritual journey. I can guide you on that path, but you have to steer that wheel. You have to understand that you want to be the person driving that vehicle. You want to be the person driving that wheel. We could all get connections. Never think in your wildest dream that you can get a connection. If I tell you about one of my most crazy experiences I had and how I actually met my spiritual guide, and at the time where I wanted to take my life, and this was something like maybe a few years ago, and when I tell you that I was able to literally meet my spiritual guide. So there's so many steps to us and layers to us. It's not about you getting on your spiritual journey today and literally meeting your spiritual guide tomorrow. There's steps, and if you and a person both start your spiritual journey today, one person can have that experience, and then the other person don't have to have that experience. So keep that in mind. It does not matter. If you're not clairvoyant, it's a little bit harder for you to actually see in that spiritual realm, for you to actually have that spiritual experience. But you can. Keep that in mind as well. You're not going to be able to see everything as another person can, because that person may be clairvoyant and they may have that ability and don't know that they have that ability because they were living in a realm where everything was closed off. All the chakras was closed. So they went through life, they lived a normal life, and at a certain age, they started doing some meditation. Just little meditation actually picks up that vibration. Keep that in mind. So just started doing a little bit of meditation, and all of a sudden they started catching visions. They started astral traveling. They started astral projection. They met their spiritual guide, and then you're sitting up here like, but you just started your spiritual journey like 2 years ago, and I've been on the spiritual journey for 10. So keep that in mind. Don't watch anybody. It's really about you connecting to the divine. And as tune in next week. I'm going to try to make the video on Wednesday instead of Thursday, because I did say it was Spiritual Wednesday. So keep that in mind, and I'll continue to help you on your path, on your journey, and we could journey through this realm together and understand who we are, and we could be able to connect to the divine, and you could be able to steer your wheel a little bit better, where you don't have to go through all these obstacles, blockage, hurt, pain, as much as you are going through it. Because if you learn your numerology, and I'm telling you that right now, if you learn your numerology and you understand your path in life, of the path that you're going to go through, that destiny path and what's lined up for you, and you know what's coming, you're not going to experience it as if you were blind in a room, that you were blindfolded and the room is dark and you're bumping into each doorway, object, and whatever is in that room with you. So you will have a little better ability in actually controlling a little bit more in your life. So thank you for watching, and I hope that I see you next week. And tune in, and I'm going to get a little bit more organized. I'm probably going to drop it at a certain time, but you know, I'm still trying to actually balance my work day, build this website. So I do apologize for not dropping it on Wednesday. So I really want to get to that point where I'm so organized, and it's like, I don't know why, like I think YouTube is like, the hardest thing is just to be consistent and just kind of like do what you say, because sometimes the day gets so hectic and you find yourself losing, you know, time and not paying attention to the time. So I do apologize, guys, and thank you again.